Thank you all very much. So my name's Claiborne, if you have not had a class with me before. This is my usual 5:15 p.m. Monday slot for my open yoga class, which is more yoga-ish because my style has been other movement methods have infiltrated their way into my yoga practice. So it's not anything pure in terms of a pure yoga like you might find in the books, but things that I like to do to try to make sure you are moving better in your body and that you can feel better and less stiff if you've been, hanging around your apartment all day and all week, frankly, with this quarantine going on. So before we start, I always like to, let me first tell you a couple things to pretty much not to expect. Regulars, you know what I'm going to say. New people, maybe you don't, unless you're psychic. I don't teach a flow style, really. It's kind of stop and start. And I don't teach downward facing dog that much anymore, although I do occasionally, but it's very rare, and it's usually toward the end of class. So keep that in mind. I'm not stopping you from doing it if you want to, and I can't tell if you're doing it anyway. And then second, I like to give you a fun fact of the day. Nothing to do with yoga, nothing to do with this class, but it's your conversation starter for whoever you are quarantined with. Tonight's fun fact also comes from the same article I read from last week, 100 totally useless facts that are too entertaining for words. The largest scrambled eggs ever made weighed nearly 3.5 tons. Gotta be really hungry to eat that. They say that breakfast, so the mystical they say that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And if you're the kind of person who wakes up hungry, then perhaps your mouth will water over the fact that in October of 2019, the Federación Nacional de Avicultores de Colombia, sorry for my Spanish pronunciation, made the largest scrambled eggs ever, a process that took quite a few chefs to pull off. After mixing 59,758 eggs, along with a whole lot of butter, milk, onions, and garlic, the dish wound up weighing 6,860 pounds and 12.57 ounces. That's a lot of eggs, which is about 3.4 tons. The pan used, I was wondering about that, huh? The pan used to prepare the history-making dish was over 39 feet long and 13 feet wide. I think that I would have a hard time fitting that in my kitchen cabinet. So thank you all for your input ahead of time. Those of you who chimed in and told me what you wanted to work on. Somebody mentioned core, somebody mentioned lower back, and luckily those are both kind of, they fall under the same umbrella. Anyway, you have deep abdominal layer, the transversus abdominis, that is effectively your abdominals in your back. It wraps around and connects into something called the thoracolumbar fascia. So anytime you do something for the core, you are pretty much working on trying to make sure your lower back is functioning better. And again, make sure you have your strap or your belt or your dog leash. And let's start. I will admit ahead of time, I don't know how intense the core work will be because I had kind of a late lunch today, so my apologies, and I'm still kind of feeling it right now. So let's lie down. So last Monday, I believe we started in this constructive rest position. You can go into this. It's a nice neutral position for your hips and your lower back. However, if your inner thighs and your lower back are feeling pretty good, you could take the soles of your feet together and let your knees drop out to the sides. And then turn your palms toward the ceiling and let's close the eyes. Now, if you're discovering, of course, that your body does not appreciate this particular position, if you chose the kind of open book position that your legs are in, this is called bound angle pose, then just take them back. Right? Take the feet, plant them back on the floor. It's like you're closing the book. And then begin to attune your mind to your abdominals and see how either rigid or supple they might be. Right, maybe I should say rigid and receptive to being relaxed. So you want to kind of be somewhere in between, not totally shredded, but not like, cover of I've Been Eating a Whole Lot magazine. So you want to have that strength and suppleness. Abdominal breathing is very sedating to your body, to your nervous system. And we could use some of that quiescence that maybe has been a little elusive with all that's happening around us right now, the quarantine. And all you have to do right now is to watch the rise and fall of your abdomen, but maybe add just a little more effort into breathing. Try to puff up the belly just a little bit more. And then exhale. Recruit your abdominals a little bit to deflate it. Deflate your belly. And watch that nice little respiratory wave happening in your body. And then consider your theme for the remainder of this session, and maybe something that you might carry into the rest of your evening. If you can't think of a theme, if you can't think of any inner directive that will be a good motivator for you, I will suggest one. And it's one I use a lot in my own practice, and I've been using for many years. I'm becoming more aware. I'm becoming more aware. That was actually a suggestion originally from Jill Miller of Yoga Tune-Up, who I've been studying with for just about 10 years. And it's good because awareness in our bodies never really stops. We have new things to be aware of all the time. I'm becoming more aware. Good. And then very slowly, draw your knees toward the midline. And then begin to move them side to side very gently, like windshield wipers moving very slowly on your windshield. Don't worry about having the knees be matched right now, about them trying to stay together. You just let them bypass each other. Not going too strict with the directions right now. And then start to assess how this is feeling in your lower body. Or I should say, not in your lower body, but primarily in your lower back and your hips. Hips are your lower body, so how does it feel everywhere, I suppose? If this feels like enough for you right now, then stick with this. If, however, you feel like you could stand to give yourself a little more elongation in the sides of your legs and up through your lower back and maybe some of your thoracic spine, then as your knees are going to one side, for instance, as they're going to the right here, you take your top leg, and don't worry about matching up the knees, but you try to straighten that left leg however much it can straighten, and then you rebend it as you resettle in the middle, and then transition to that second side. The right leg reaches over somewhere near the left fingers. And then you rebend the knee as you recenter yourself, and then go back to the right. And keep going from side to side. For anyone who's doing this right now who is new to my class, maybe you joined in a few minutes late, I usually do play music when we're in person, but I'm not right now because I'm just trying to avoid any copyright issues. So hopefully, you have whatever your favorite music is playing right now. Or maybe you're just enjoying the silence, with the exception of my voice, of course. Last couple times. Nicely done. And then next time, your left knee rather, goes over to the right. Let's keep it there and keep it a little bit bent. So now we'll explore the outer hip, but also the inner hip, but you'll probably feel this on the outer hip a little bit more. So you start to internally and externally rotate your hip. So just making sure I'm in the shot here, if you can see this. So you're still in the twist, if it feels okay in your body, or you can balance yourself on your right side, hand on your right side of your head. So you would start, I'll show both options. So this left leg begins to internally and externally rotate. And notice that it's not taking my knee straight up and down, because that would just be abduction and adduction. I'm going for internal and external rotation, or lateral and medial rotation, synonymous terms with the external and internal rotation. All right, so it's like a screwdriver. You're screwing and unscrewing a screw. So if that's enough work for you to focus on, keep doing that. However, you can also take that left shoulder back to the floor and your head back to the floor, so that you're still getting some rotation through your spine, which might make you a little more aware of this part of your body. By essentially creating a little more traction in this left side. So maybe about 10 more seconds of this. Good. All right, so we'll switch sides. I'm going to flip around though, so that you can still see what I'm doing in case it's unclear. So both legs are bent, right? You had been in this knees cascading from one side to the other. And then, right, let me start with my hand on the side of my head here. So watch the leg, right? So the upper thigh bone, the upper leg bone, is staying on the same line of latitude, essentially. And it's the lower part of the leg that's crossing through multiple lines of latitude, right, as the foot goes up and down. So you should feel this kind of right out here, kind of right near where my Lululemon insignia might be. And maybe you're wearing Lululemon pants or your Adidas stripe, somewhere around here. These are internal rotators that sometimes get a little underused or misused. So either stick with this on your side, if this is enough to focus on, or you could even lightly take your left hand to the outside of your right knee just to give it a little extra weight as you continue that internal and external rotation. Again, just think of screwing and unscrewing a screw. So again, you're most likely to feel this on this lateral edge of your right leg. Probably wherever you feel it the most is where you might be the tightest. Good, and well done. Now let's do something to take us out of that flexion and rotation and go into extension here. So bridge pose. So we'll try to do this statically. So your feet are parallel and roughly hip width apart. Arms are at your sides. I like to have them pointing up. It just gives the sensation of just creating a little more opening in your chest. So I like to start by pushing my lower back into the floor. So you create this posterior pelvic tilt. Push lower back into the ground, and then you scoop tailbone toward the sky. Maybe you just feel the pelvis off the floor. Still got lumbar bones on the ground, but then you start to take them off the floor gradually, becoming more aware of each spinal bone as it even peels itself from the ground. And then once your hips are up there, as high as you can take them, squeeze your glutes. Hopefully you were kind of squeezing them as you were lifting, but squeeze them even more now. And to stave off any likelihood of potentially feeling tension in your lower back when you squeeze your glutes, try to squeeze your feet toward each other. Not in a way that helps to knock the knees. You don't want to do that. But in a way that just engages your inner thighs. Yep. So, and try to do both at the same time. Squeezing your inner thighs by activating your feet against your mat. Your feet are trying to squeeze toward each other. They're not actually moving. You use the, feel that static friction. And then squeeze your glutes. So, of course, you can rest. You can come out of this anytime you want. But if you can, stay with this on me for about 5 more breaths, let's say. Right? But I don't breathe exactly the same rate as you might. So it's just a rough estimate, 5 breaths. Yeah? Inhale. Exhale. Lift hips a little bit more. 5. Inhale. Exhale, 4. Squeeze glutes just a little bit more and inner thighs a little more. Inhale. Exhale, 3. Also, try to push the back of the head and the arms into the ground. Inhale. Exhale, 2. Inhale. And exhale, 1. Nicely done. Good. Taking that down. Then, take your arms across your body. Just let them be very floppy, very relaxed. Just kind of flapped over you. We're trying to create a little more space between your shoulder blades, between your scapula. As your knees drop to the left, it's not going to be a huge amount, but you try to lean your shoulders and your head a little bit toward the right. And then reverse that. Everything comes back to the middle, and then you drop your knees to the right and your shoulders to the left. Go back and forth. So you already did this, with the exception of what the arms are doing now, a little bit different. So try to compare and contrast how this feels now compared to several minutes ago. Last couple times, maybe one more time to each side. Good. All right, so next, done a lot of work for the outer hips. Let's try to stretch them out a little bit. So sometimes this is referred to as the figure 4 stretch. You cross your ankle. Let me turn this way for a moment so you can see. Cross your left ankle over your right knee, and then your hands, your left hand, will thread between this little triangular space, and your right hand will wrap around the outer rim of your right leg. You pull your right foot away from the floor, and then try to pull your right knee toward your chest. And if you can, I'll also turn back this way so you can see. You push your left elbow into your left thigh. Right, so as you pull your right knee toward you, try to push your left knee away. So you're getting your left hip more flexed and more externally rotated. So I have a wide-legged seated stretch in mind for a little bit later if I can stay organized. And if not, maybe we'll save it for tomorrow or whenever I do one of these again. So pulling that right knee in and pushing the left knee away. And then we'll change it up a little bit. Turn back sideways. So you could keep your right foot off the floor. Now, but actually keep your left hand holding onto the back of your right thigh so that your hip flexor is not constantly pulling your lumbar spine forward, because we're trying to alleviate lower back tension right now. take your right hand to the sole of your left foot. Now try to push your right hand actively into the left foot, and then try to push your left foot actively into your right hand. So this is starting to integrate your upper body into what predominantly looks like a lower body exercise. So you might feel this in your inner arm line, your biceps, anterior deltoid, pectoral region. Yeah. And I'm also still pushing my left elbow, by the way, into my left thigh. So keep doing this. It's up to you how much pressure you want to apply, how exhausted you want to make your right arm and right chest complex. Then keep a hold of your left foot here with your right hand. And actually, you know what? I'm going to turn around. You don't have to, but I'm going to spin just so you can see me better. This right leg can straighten, or you can decide maybe you want to keep this right leg bent, sort of in the theme of having started this way, in this bound angle position. It's like 1/2 bound angle. You push your your left foot into your right hand and vice versa. And do that as you start to take your leg across your body. Just going a little bit side to side. And now try to push a little bit harder. For anybody who does, who's joining in today, maybe who hasn't done so much of my class before, or yoga in general, and you come more from the fitness space, or working out on the machines, it's sort of like doing the chest fly, just with the right arm. Right? And your left foot is providing resistance. Good. And then start to carry your leg, start to push your left foot into your right hand as you take your leg over to the right. The knee does not have to straighten completely. Just do the best you can with this. And then you take it back over your body, maybe even taking that left foot toward the midline. Right? And you might feel it a little bit on the inner thigh of the left leg is maybe the beginning stages of a stretch. Go back, side, back, side. Good. Release that. So let's straighten out both legs and then reach your arms back. You can, grab one of your wrists or just reach both arms back by themselves. This is just sort of a neutralizing position. My hands have disappeared under my sofa, and if you happen to be near a sofa, you can actually kind of hold on to the sofa and you can kind of pull it towards you, or chair, whatever you have, as long as it's not going to move, and kind of integrate a little bit of upper body work. So I'm mimicking doing a pull-up right now. I just made that up on the spot, by the way, because, oh, poof, there were my hands right there with under the sofa. Right, if you're doing that, try to make sure your elbows don't flare out to the sides, squeeze them in toward the midline. Last couple of breaths with this position. As relaxed or unrelaxed as you want to make it. And then release. Okay, so let's do that little sequence on the other side. Let's see, right ankle is crossing over the left knee this time. Forgive me if I've messed up my rights and lefts. I do that a lot. Something to work on always, so do as I do, not as I say. Not always, but sometimes. So now your hands are going behind your left thigh as you try to pull your left knee toward your chest. You push your right elbow into your right elbow into your right thigh. I failed to mention on the first side, if your head is doing this sort of thing, if you kind of look like you have a whiplash position or hyperextension in your neck, you may want to put a pillow. If you got a pillow in your sofa, you could just grab just put that behind your head, and that'll kind of neutralize your cervical spine a bit. Otherwise, the back of your head is just kind of hanging out on the floor. Pulling that left knee toward the chest and pushing your right elbow into your right knee. See what it feels like to breathe with your legs positioned this way on this second side. Whatever you noticed the first time, notice it here. Are you tighter? Are you looser? Is your mindset different on this side than on the first side, for whatever reason? Either stay with that, or you can keep your right hand behind your left thigh. Left hand goes to the sole of your right foot. So now we're doing this static work. Your left hand is trying to push to the right. Your right foot is trying to push to the left. So both actions will kind of cancel each other out for a static but active effort here. So I can feel this in my left biceps area, even going to the chest, and then even in my right calf and right hamstrings. Because if you think about it, it's your left hand is providing, what might be resistance for a squat on your right leg. So I'm making this a little more active than it appears. Good. And we'll go right on to the next thing. So you can maintain a hold of your right foot with your left hand. Again, I'm going to just do my little breakdancing maneuver to swivel over the other way so you can see what I'm doing. In case you're more of a visual learner and not so much of a descriptive one. Left leg, can either be straight here, or bent. You can have the foot pretty close to the right buttock, and you'll get this sustained stretch in your left quadriceps. So you can decide which of those you want to do. Push hand into foot, foot and hand. Becoming more aware of your hamstrings as you start to lengthen your leg, as you start to extend your knee and flex your hip. And then flex your knee. Still having flexion in your right hip, but now it's maybe starting to abduct a little bit, starting to go a little bit to the right. Maybe you feel a little more stretch in the inner thigh of that leg now, rather than the outer thigh region. You go back and forth. It's like you're pushing a piece of furniture out of the way over and over again. You could also have used a strap. Right? Apologies for not having mentioned that. Hopefully it was self-evident if you have your strap or your dog leash or your belt or your tie or your really long towel within reach. Last several times, see if you can up the intensity a little bit. Try to push your hand into your foot and your foot into your hand just a little bit harder, like 2 times harder than you just were. Well done. All right. So let's sit up. It's only taken, almost 35 minutes to get off our backs. So I want to try, let me introduce you to something I don't think I've actually done. Excuse me, there's my lunch. Don't have lunch at 3 o'clock. I recommend that. If you are teaching a class at 5:15. So this is something I don't think I've done in person in a class before, or on camera. So I hope this translates okay, and that I will just do it justice, and I will do the description justice. So this is I'm probably am in need of refining the title a little bit. But for now, I call this the plank-based. I have it written down off camera, so I don't forget. Plank-based friction involved, hyphenated, biceps curl and triceps extensions. You might be saying, what the heck is that? Let me explain for you. So you would come into a plank position on your knees. And make sure, of course, that it's plank that is not sagging in your lower back. For anybody who requested lower back stuff, if you want your lower back to hurt more, then let your lower back sag. But if you don't, create that posterior tilt. So you curl tailbone back and down, and then try to saran wrap your abdominals inwards. And then here you are in this plank position. So here's where the arm work comes in. This will require some stability, so you really want to try to brace your torso as much as you can. You make a fist with your right hand, and you take it not necessarily in line with your right hand. It goes back a little bit. I have it back maybe like 1.5 hand lengths where I just had it. I hope you can see this okay. Your right hand is using the friction. Use the friction between your hand and your mat. And I'm trying to drag my right hand forward as if to mimic sort of a slow, almost with a resistance band, kind of hammer curl. So you try to drag your hand forward. I'm shaking as I do that. I don't know about you all. I'm also buckling my mat a little bit too. You drag it forward as far as you can go without, letting your torso position be compromised. Squeezing your glutes, of course, to support your lower back. Then, once you've reached your arm out as far as you can, you try to kind of engage the tricep side of the arm a little bit more. You try to drag it back. And I don't know if it's evident on camera, but I am shaking like crazy right now. Like, this is kind of mimicking, this is creating a contraction in the anterior part of the abdominals. And Matt's probably going to buckle a little bit, but then you can straighten the back out. Let's just try that one more time. It's a very slow but challenging effort. It's hard for me. I don't know if it is for you. You can also modify this by not doing it, by doing child's pose. It's up to you, I can't tell if you're doing it anyway. But if you wanted to have some kind of challenge, maybe a version of arm work you haven't done before and core work. So one more time. Try to drag your forearm, or not your forearm, excuse me, your fist. You could also try this if you don't have any issues with wrist extension or flexion with a flat hand. Right? Trying to push that forward. Slowly. Then, of course, you try to drag it back. And my mat is buckling. You can see that I'm creating this big wave. Whew, that's tough. And I'm actually sweating a little bit just from doing that. Are you? Maybe? So let's try that on the second side. I'm gonna flip around so you can see what I'm doing here. Yeah? All right, so first we'll try kind of the hammer curl version of this plank-based friction-involved biceps curl and triceps extension. Make a fist, and take it back a little bit, prioritize your spine over anything else, kind of get that organized first. So if you just went right into it without thinking about, what's my spine doing? Both hands down initially, posterior tilt, squeeze glutes, squeeze abdominals, squeeze anything you can think of. Lots of details, but it all makes a difference, I promise. Only spine you'll ever have, so might as well take care of it. Left hand is back a little bit, and then use the friction between your mat and your hands to drag your forearm forward, or rather, I keep saying forearm, your fist, rather, the other word that starts with F here. Again, it's like doing a hammer curl. And then stop with that hammer time. Haha. Almost April Fool's Day, but I always make jokes anyway. Can't turn it off. It's a blessing and a curse. Then you try to drag your hand backwards. So you feel a lot of shaking in your abdominals. Right. Register on the Richter scale. I don't know about you. Then for the second pass here, you can try this with a flat hand or with your fist. Push your palm forward with resistance. That's where, that's where the work comes in here. And then you drag it back. Ooh, that's tough. So why don't we take child's pose to give your arms a little break and to tune back in with your breath and then the awareness of how your body's feeling in case you became unaware, sort of globally, corporeally, throughout your whole body. Yeah. So arms can be outstretched here, or the traditional child pose is kind of a face planting position where you're down on your forehead and your arms are at your sides, and they just slump. Good. Breathe deeply. Good, and then come back up to all fours. And let's do spinal extension and flexion, cat and cow pose. On your inhalation, make your spine U-shaped. Lift your head. On your exhalation, make your spine upside down, U-shaped. Lower your head. Inhale, send the front of your spine toward the floor. Top of your head toward the ceiling. On your exhalation, send the back of your spine toward the ceiling or toward the sky. If you've managed to snag a place somewhere outside to practice, you're watching on your phone or your tablet. A couple more rounds of that on your own. All right, so now let's move up into a standing position, and I'm still working on trying to get my camera angle right all the time, but I think I'm going to have to move back a little bit so that you can still see all of me, although we will be hinged at the hips here. So this is a lateral lunge. You can either turn your mat to be parallel to mine if you want to, or you can keep it facing forward, doesn't matter. And if you need a chair, maybe you have a chair within reach, even a trash can wastebasket in your office, if you're doing this in your office, just in the event that you might need a little extra support in your spine, I'm actually just going to turn sideways to show you what to avoid in your back. If your hamstrings are really tight, your spine might look something like that. Right? If that is the case, get your hands on something so that you can find a little more of a neutral position. Okay. So your feet are apart about 3.5 or 4 feet, depending on what you're comfortable with. Your hands can stay stationary, at least initially. Right? As you lunge, you're lunging sideways, send one knee toward its respective pinky toe side of the foot, and then you go to the other side. Now you can also change this up, integrate a little bit of lateral extension and flexion into this. So you turn. I'm not worrying about mirror imaging right now because I'm not sure which way everybody's facing. But I'm walking my hands, I'm trying to expose the left side of my torso to the camera a little bit more while trying to keep my lower body pretty much as is. Bear in mind, this will create a little more contraction in your right lower back. So if you're a little sensitive there, just don't do this so much as I might be right now. You try to go from side to side. You can even change your hand position a little bit as your left knee bends and your right leg straightens. You can kind of stretch out that left leg a little bit more. And then you go back. Yeah, and then you can also kind of bring your lats into this a little bit more. If you have a decent grip between your hands and your mat, when you're lunging towards your left, you try to pull isometrically, almost like you're repeating that friction-based biceps curl and triceps extension. You actually try to pull your left hand isometrically toward your left foot. Back out of that again. We'll try that once more. Go back toward the left. Hang out there for a second. Activate your hands. And when your left hand's pulling toward you, your right hand is trying to push away. And then we can switch that. So your lower body kind of stays as is, although it just made a little adjustment. I'm on carpet right now, so I don't have a whole lot of grip, except under my hands. So then you can walk your hands, aim your fingers to point toward the left, and then you start to bend your right knee, try to send your knee toward the pinky side of your foot. Your right leg is doing a lunge, and your left leg is doing the lateral split. Right. See what that feels like. And then you shift back, just kind of back out of it for a second, and then go back to the right, and you try to pull with your right hand and push with your left hand. So your hands are trying to do this on the mat. Right? Those of you who heard me say that and we're looking down, this is what I just did. They're trying to do this isometrically. So lunging back towards your right knee, try to pull your right hand towards your right foot, and then try to push your left hand forward, and then go back out of it, and then back into it, and then release. Good. All right. Take a little breather. So now we can do something called, I believe it's called thunder. Let's see, what is it? I get these mixed up. I think it's called thunderbolt pose when you're sitting on your heels, and hero pose when you're sitting between your heels. Maybe it's considered more heroic in yoga lingo to be able to get your hips down a little bit more. But if that doesn't feel very good on your knees, then I would suggest not sitting between your heels. Right? I'm not right now. So this is a good stretch for the soles of the feet, assuming that you've tucked your toes here. Try to keep your inner ankles pretty close. Right? Try not to let them splay like that. Hopefully you all can see that. Yep. Heels try to stay together, pretty close together, so they're relatively neutral. And then try to inch your knees forward a little bit. Or millimeter them, something more metrically lenient. You're trying to push your toes backwards, almost with the same isometric effort that your hands were trying to do when you were trying to pull the hand towards you when you're doing some of the stuff on the hands we were just doing. It's like you're trying to flick sand out from under your toes. And then release. Okay. So here's where having the strap or the dog leash or whatever you have similar to that will come into play. So this is a variation of something, it's like a seated version of the lateral splits. It's pretty much, it's a change in orientation of the lateral lunge with some side bend integrated into it. So actually, let me turn sideways initially here so you can see better what the spine is trying to do. So you're trying to sit up relatively tall. Yeah. You can use your hands to give your pelvis a little more support if it's kind of going back into a posterior tilt and making your spine round, almost like you're on all fours rounding your back. All right, just give yourself that kickstand of support if you need it. Right? And maybe that's as far as you go. From there, exactly where the ends of the strap wind up is going to be a little different for everyone, because nobody's the same height, nobody's the same proportions, not even the yoga straps or your Dolce & Gabbana belts that you're using right now, or the same length. So it's just, I'm going to show you from the example that I have right now. So I have my strap around my right foot while my legs are abducted. They're way away from the midline. And again, that's a seated version of the lateral lunging we just did. And you can actually get your external rotators. You can make this a rotator cuff exercise here. You take the strap, the ends of the strap, in your left hand. Right? And then start to lean forward a little bit. You might start to feel that perhaps a bit more on the inner thighs. Use your right hand if you need to for support. So the thing we're trying to go for here is to not let your elbow be kind of flapping out here in the wind. You're trying to bring it toward the midline so it's kind of aiming right at your gut, right at your umbilicus. You can also initially take your right hand, if you can maintain a relatively upright spine, take your right hand to the lateral edge of your left elbow and try to line it up a little bit more with these short sides of your mat. Right, just feeling that attempt at external rotation. Then we can bring lateral extension into your right side. This is an all levels class, and this is maybe on a higher rung of intensity than doing child's pose, for instance. You start to reach your right arm up and over toward the left while trying to pull on the strap. Right? And that'll give your back some support too. There is no requirement to grab your foot. If you can't, great. If you can, great. Do what you can. Right? And let's hold this just for about 5 more breaths. Inhale. Exhale 5. Inhale. Exhale 4. Inhale. Exhale 3. Inhale. Inhale a little more. Exhale 2. Exhale a bit more, lean a little more abdominal work. And then last one, inhale. And exhale 1. Good. Well done. Quick little transition before we hit that other side. Right hand behind you. This is a variation. This is sort of an homage to the late, great Alvina Haverkamp, who was a longtime teacher in New Orleans. This is similar to an exercise she used to call the lift and linger. This is sort of a lateral splits with a little bit of a back bend. So maybe a little bit intense, but give it a shot if you're willing. Right hand is behind you. Left hand, you start to lift your hips, pile in your abdominal muscles. Hips go up. I'm actually coming onto the outer, completely actually onto the left sole of my left foot. And I'm on the outer edge of my right foot. It's almost like it's a triangle pose that's been tipped sideways. And then you reach your left arm straight toward that wall behind you. Try to drive your outer edge of your right foot into the ground. And then release. That's it. Okay. Second side, same thing. Take your strap around your left foot. And it's sort of equal length on both sides, so you have a good place to grab it. Actually, no, to ensure that it's even more externally rotated, you know what? I'm grabbing the wrong arm, excuse me. Never mind, let me restart. Your right hand is grabbing the strap now. There we go. And then you try to drive it toward the abdomen. Sit up a little bit taller. Left arm goes up and over, and you side bend as far as you can go. And in a sense, you're also you're stuck in the middle of a biceps hammer curl on the right arm, right? My arm is doing this. So if I were to sit up and show you, yeah, that's all it is. It's just kind of done with lateral extension in that left side, right? Your right elbow trying to drive toward the abdomen. Left arm goes up and over, reaches towards your right foot. Again, it doesn't have to get there. You can even just have your left hand on the floor if that's easier, right? 5 more breaths wherever you are with this, and you might be in child's pose, or you might be having your evening cocktail if you've given up at this point. Inhale. Exhale, 5. Inhale. Exhale, 4. Inhale. Exhale, 3. Inhale. Exhale, 2. Inhale. Inhale a little more. Exhale, 1. Exhale a little more. Feel that extra puff of air exiting your stomach, exiting your lungs. Good. All right. Let's lie down once again as we start to wind things down for this session. Now, as a means of sort of test from almost an hour ago to retesting now, you can come back into that same position that we started in, reclining bound angle. Sometimes it's referred to as cobbler pose. So decide if this is okay for your legs. If not, perfectly fine to do constructive rest. Just adducted the knees back toward the midline. Or stretch your legs out, whatever you'd like. And close your eyes. Know that it is your birthright to be in this this rest and digest state, to be in this to be able to relax while just staying alert to all your sensory input. Observe your belly, observe your rib cage. Try to feel your heartbeats and the heartbeat's periphery going all the way down into the tops of the feet, all the way to the backs of the knees, maybe into the groin. You detect your pulse in your wrists, your elbows, your neck, your temples, the temporalis muscle, kind of right where your frames of your eyeglasses would be. Feel your whole body pulsing with that life, that vitality, that newfound vitality. I am becoming more aware. I'm going to count down 5 more breaths, after which we'll start to sit up. But you may choose to stay longer. You decide. Inhale. Exhale 5. Inhale. Exhale 4. Inhale. Exhale 3. Inhale. Exhale 2. Inhale. Exhale 1. As if to symbolically close the book, close the chapter on this story of your body and mind's connection. Start to bring your knees back toward the midline. Slowly roll yourself to one side and start to sit up slowly. Maybe keep your eyes closed. Final few moments. You can keep your palms together, take them together rather, maybe bow toward them. In gratitude to your body, in gratitude to your health, gratitude for your health, and gratitude to all the blessings in your life. Thank you all very much out there in happy virtual internet land. Well done. Namaste. Have a wonderful evening.